So our next speaker is someone that you wouldn't want to get into a tussle with. She's fought in 2 boxing rings before, and although for charity, you still wouldn't want to come across her in the wrong light. She is a graduate at Singularity University's Global Solutions Program, and previously she worked in the video games industry and ran World of Warcraft for China. But now she's much more interested in the intersection between human consciousness, human potential, and technology. And she's the executive director at the Trans Technology Lab. So please welcome to the stage Nichol Bradford.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. So when we think about the human mind, our emotions, and our ability to connect with one another, we rarely think about technology, but we should. Because the future of the human mind is, in fact, an exponential technology story. And there is a deep tie between the future of work, society, and the human mind, where solving for this last one could actually help address them all. Mental health and social emotional well-being have tremendous impact on companies and on society. When employees are stressed and depressed, they do not perform at their best. And low social emotional skills drag on teams, causing low resilience, low trust, low creativity, and more. And when you think about what does the future require, what are the skills that are needed, I really like what Deloitte calls it, essential human skills. So you can see social skills, human interaction skills, adaptive skills, people skills. What's interesting about this list is that in the future, having these skills will not be enough. You must be really good at them because this will be the basis of your value to this system. But in our society today, the way that people learn these skills is based on luck because we do not teach them with infrastructure. We do not teach them institutionally. So the thing that we need the most, we do not teach. And so if you think about all of the talks that you've heard about the future of work, many of them talk about how many jobs and which jobs are going to be lost. And depending on the estimate, I've heard everything from 800 million to 47% of all jobs. The estimates are so broad, it's clear that no one actually knows. Or you hear specifically which skills, the reason why creativity will be important in the future. But you haven't really heard many talks about how we actually cross the chasm between where we are today to making people future ready. This is that talk. So step 1, assess. So Facebook knows that your individual psychological profile is data. MIT knows this as well. This is a video of an AI that was trained on 5,000 hours of sitcoms and now is able to predict human group behavior 30 seconds before the action. This was in 2016, so you know how much better this system is today than it was then. So human psychology and behavior is data. Human emotion is also data. Pupil dilation, microfacial expression, voice, text, biological signals, HRV, EEG, GSR. The ability with computer vision to understand and predict human behavior is accelerating, and human emotion. So human emotion is also data. Last summer, I was at a summit at Stanford with some of the most important neuroscientists in the world. And there was a question from the audience as to what is the biggest barrier, biggest obstacle for our understanding of the human brain. And I was expecting a biological dilemma. But the answer was computing power. So the human brain, also data. And then if you think about the genetic tracking of depression, or if you think about how psychological trauma shows up in genes for generations, or if you think about the human biome and early indicators that healthy guts and healthy minds have a correlation, our brains, our bodies, our biomes, our DNA, all data. So you can see that much of what we are is data. But we have an outdated belief in our society that our inner landscape is ephemeral. And this presents 3 missed opportunities. The first missed opportunity, by believing that our inner landscape is purely ephemeral and not data, is that we missed harnessing the assessment power. We have the ability to understand more deeply, to assess more quickly. And so by doing this, we actually leave the understanding of ourselves to the ad sellers rather than to us. Imagine if you understood yourself as well as Facebook did, or as well as Google did. The second thing that we miss by not accepting that so much of who we are is data is we miss resourcing the purpose problem. So a little while ago, Bill Gates wrote that he was more worried about the purpose problem than automation. So after the rise of the automation, what are the meanings of our lives and why are we here? And so for purpose, I would argue that if you think about how all of you came to know your purpose, it was built on a certain level of self-knowledge, a certain level of self-awareness. And so who we are, that fundamental human question of who we are, is based on a combination of what I say, what my body says, and what my behavior says. And so we have the ability to use this data to resource the purpose problem. Imagine if you understood yourself that deeply, and then if you could decide what you'd like to explore, and then after exploring, decide who you'd like to become, and to be fully supported in that. Imagine what that could do for you. The last danger that not accepting that so much of what we are is data presents is that we miss the opportunity to insist that we are more than data, because we are so much more than data. And so the next step, amplification. One of the people that I admire the most is Garry Kasparov. And the reason why I admire him is not for the way that he won, but for the way that he lost. Many people here, you might know that he lost to IBM's Deep Blue. And the way that he reacted to that loss was to learn everything that he could about AI. And then he went on to establish a new category in chess called advanced freestyle, or centaur chess, because he asked himself the question, what if I could play with an AI by my side, with human intuition, human strategy, human experience? Could it be the most perfect game ever? And the answer is yes, because human AI units beat AI most of the time. So I believe that this amplified human format is what we should design for. This is what we should target. Now, AI human units might seem a little bit out there and a little bit far away. But today, there are great examples of people using this. One of my favorite examples is Joyable. So Joyable is Centaur Therapist, where a human sits atop a web of technology and is able to support, their therapists are able to support 200 people each with greater efficacy, because if you have social anxiety and you are standing behind the potted plant on a Friday night You need help then, not a week later on a couch. And so this combination of a therapist on top of an app with activities, monitoring, and text-based support, people are able to get the help that they need when they need it. And as a result, instruction is tied to application, which is why they have greater efficacy. This shows that the ability to use this sort of platform to support an essential human can work for a wide variety of deeply sensitive, deeply human, deeply emotional things. So imagine yourself several years from now, a few years from now, as a mentor. And you're busy, like everybody here is so busy, right? You're busy, you don't have much time, but you have all of the wisdom of a life lived fully engaged. All of that wisdom. Imagine if you could help hundreds, maybe even thousands of young people because you and your AI, you focus on the creativity, intuition, inspiration of mentorship, and your AI, with permission, is able to monitor your mentee's data stream and help you personalize your recommendations to them. And so because I have a background in gaming, think about, so this thing on the right, for those of you who may not know, this is a talent tree. It's sort of like the way you progress through a game, the way you decide what you're going to do next. So imagine that you and your AI lay out a journey of 1,000 tasks for all of the thousands of people that you mentor. Anyone who completed this journey would be someone that you would want to meet. Not only would you want to meet them, but they would be ready to meet you at the moment, to get the most of the opportunity. And so the future of mentorship, which is really the future of knowledge transfer, and the future of coaching, will be amplified. And so in order to have this future, we must release one bias and accept one truth. The bias that we must release is that only humans can help humans, and only one-to-one human interactions are valid. Two quick examples. One, the VA has found that soldiers are more willing to disclose PTSD to a chatbot than to a human. And so they use the chatbots to identify who needs help faster and then get a human in there. Two, depression. The World Health Organization estimates that by 2030, depression is going to be the leading disease burden. And the delta between the people who need help and the people who are licensed to help, if you filled every school, there are not enough of these people to meet the need. And so to insist that only humans can help humans is to say that it is okay for millions of people to go without support. And then the truth that we must accept is that there is a place that technology has the ability to help us. Deeply sensitive, deeply emotional, deeply human issues. Because we are possibilities. And this has the ability to usher in an unprecedented age and stage of human growth. I'm very excited by this. So step 3, we are possibilities. So I'm going to tell you this story in 2 acts. So first of all, act 1. If you're a police officer in the United States, this is one of the most stressful jobs in the world and in the US. These people work long hours, their jobs are dangerous, and they regularly see death and injury. One of the things about these populations is they have incredibly high levels of stress, they show high levels of substance abuse, family issues, and there's higher levels, more of these people die from suicide than death in the line of duty. And many of this is also true for the military. What this causes is errors, overreactions, and then even heart attacks. So this is an issue. Stress in the United States alone is a $350 billion issue. And so, chronic stress, these are extreme cases, but chronic stress, and what this number shows you is that it's happening in boardrooms, startups, companies around the world. And in case you think that this is a US issue, anyone who's been tracking the stress numbers in China, you know that this is happening around the world, and especially also in many other emerging economies. And so the organizations that these people work for are highly incented to bring stress down. And so they're looking for what the DoD describes as resilience, the ability to withstand, recover, and grow in the face of stressors and changing demands. Doesn't this sound like the future, right? This sounds like the future. We all want this. And so one specific example is the Santa Clara Police Department did sensor-based training for heart rate variability. And the goal was to help officers recognize their stressors and to regulate them. And so the control group versus the group with the test, the group that was tested saw, as you can see here, reductions in stress, negative emotions. They said they felt improved family relationships. They saw improved work performance, greater team performance. And what's most interesting to me was this quote from one of the people in the test. So they said, I've been in a lot of psychological training programs, but the sensor-based tie, the physiological connection, made it real, made it tangible. And then the important sentence now, or the important point in here, I use it every day, right? This is interesting. So if this can happen for people with the most stressful jobs in the world, what might it do for you? So Act 2. Who here has done ropes training courses? Right? Yeah, they're great. They're fun. You're outside. You laugh. It's great. The challenge is they're very expensive. They happen once a year. And if you join right after it, then it's no training for you, right? So, and there's a little bit of a novelty. You couldn't do it every year. But what if you could do something like some team bonding every month? Or what if you could do something really fantastic like fix the space station together? Or what if you could fix the space station together every month because it was different? If you think about the number of people who are going to be on distributed teams, global teams, what if a global team could fix the space station together? That's what Jensen 8 does. They're a VR-based team building system. And what they do is people come in and they put these rigs on. They have rigs that they bring into offices. And they go through experiences. They fix things together. And the professional trainers, the professional coaches, are observing in God mode, coaching individuals, coaching the team. They have the experience. They get out, they get coached, and they go right back in and they do it again. And so what's happening is that these people are saying that they're feeling high levels of trust and improved team performance, so much so that they're asking their companies to bring in permanent rigs. And so this is interesting. What these two examples show are the possibilities of enhancing humans. On one side, using sensors to really train emotional self-regulation, stress self-regulation, so that we can get out of chronic stress that leads to fight or flight responses and reduces our creativity and our ability to solve the problems that are facing us. And then the second part, enhancing positive pro-social things like trust. Because one of the things that is, fundamental is that in the future of work, there are certain states that we're going to find really important. So creativity and group flow. And trust is a prerequisite for both of these things. Which leads us to the next step, connect. So I'd like a show of hands. Who here is married? Great, okay, so I'm gonna go out there a little bit, but come with me, please. So these rings are called Touch. And I love these rings because it's just one of my favorite products. And I love these rings because what happens here is that you feel the heartbeat of the person that you love. So you have one, your partner has one, and their heartbeat is pulsed to you anywhere in the world. And I love it because when people think about human connection and technology, they don't really think about them together. But this This shows that you can do amazing things with technology for connection. And so now think about the Navy SEALs, the legendary Navy SEALs. A SEAL team has got to have high levels of cognitive dexterity. They have to have the ability to become one. They call it the merge. And one of the things that many people might not know about a SEAL team is that they are non-hierarchical when they're deployed. And so the person who leads is the person who feels, and they use that word feels, like they know what to do. So it's an incredibly creative, very flexible system. And so they have to be connected. The way one SEAL team commander said it is that more than any other skills, SEAL teams rely on a merger of consciousness. That's interesting. Now, the truth of the matter is nobody knows how SEAL teams do what they do. Like, no one knows. We know that group flow can happen. We've seen it with soccer teams, we see it with SEAL teams, but no one knows exactly how it happens. But if you think about the proliferation of data, the proliferation of sensors, one day we will know. And when we know how this happens, it will change companies, it will transform society, it will transform teams, because we will develop the ability to make this accessible for all. And the reason why this matters is that as the line of automation rises, we're going to move from doing to being. And we don't know how to be. And we don't teach it on an infrastructural level anywhere in our society. And so if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, most of the exponential technologies deal with the bottom two levels. But just from what you've seen, we are developing the ability to actually use an exponential application, a transformative application of exponential technology, and move up the hierarchy. And so today, we call this transformative technology, and today, it is a $3 trillion market opportunity, not even including what's going to happen with augmentation. So this is just today, the opportunity that exists here. And it's not new, it's emerging, but it's not new. This is the Transformative Technology 200 list. The top bar is 200 companies that have products and services that are tech-enabled and enhanced that you could buy and use today. All supported by exponential technology across the well-being spectrum. So everything across the spectrum, there are technologies today that facilitate all of this. And what is coming is truly extraordinary. And it's not a top-down theory. This is what the rising generation wants. They want happiness. They want well-being. And they are willing to spend a fourth of their disposable income on this. So it is wanted. It is needed. So when I give this talk, people often ask me about struggle and the importance of struggle in human development. And I think struggle is important. Struggle is the third job when you're working towards something that matters to you. Or struggle is the 12th rep in the fourth set. Or it's getting up after you failed and doing it again. There is a difference between struggle and suffering. Suffering eats lives. It eats families. It is the unresolved psychological trauma that goes from generation to generation and causes us to lose the contribution of everyone who is affected. I'm for struggle. We can do something about suffering. So then, of course, the question you're probably all asking, what about ethics? I believe that we have to get ahead of the privacy, data ownership, and ethics of these technologies, because they are all designed from the start to measure, influence, and stimulate the human mind. And so the way that we're doing it, we believe that you create what you are. And so certainly there's going to be some kind of regulation, but the leading line is moving so fast that it's going to be difficult to regulate. So what we're doing is we're working with the entrepreneurs. We're starting a Transformative Technology Academy, and half of the content is going to be the deep tech that we talked about. We're a very heavy tech organization. The other half is going to be personal development. So beliefs, values, and shadows. Because if you don't know who you are, when you have this kind of power, you will not make the right decisions. And so this is how we're getting ahead of it. So in closing, the future of work and the future of the human mind are the same thing. But where in the past, the idea of our inner landscape and our inner development and mental health, emotional well-being, and human thriving has seemed difficult to get at, with the exponential technologies, they become tractable, and we can assess, amplify, enhance, and connect in ways that were impossible. And so everyone in this room, if you are here and you are in an organization, in my opinion, you are on the front lines of this. And you are the heroes of this age, because your ability to think about these things and bring them into your organizations, you can really help with this. So the takeaways, we are more than data, and we must not leave our humanity in the hands of what Yuval Harari calls the datist, the worshipers of data. Fully engaging on transformative technology and insisting that it elevate us beyond data is how we protect humanism. So we can assess, we can amplify, we connect. We must address the data issues, but the human mind is the next great tech frontier. And then I'm going to leave you with one more thing. We must elevate human consciousness. It is no longer a luxury. It is a requirement. But it is also not a mystery. The human mind is trainable. And we have known this for over 2,000 years. What we have now is the technology to make that scalable so that we can usher in a worldwide human awakening. Because there is no more nobler use of technology than to bring peace to the minds of humankind. Thank you.
Thank you.